The Chicago Bears are sitting in first place with Aaron Rodgers limping back into Soldier Field, and nobody really knows if this is the dream revenge moment or a trap waiting to happen. Fans have waited years to see that stadium flip the script, but now the story is messy. You might get one last shot at the legend, or you might get Mason Rudolph, and that choice says a lot about how much you actually trust this Bears team right now. Do you want the easier path, or do you want the win that feels like it changes the history between this guy and this city? What nobody is talking about enough is how thin the line really is under that first-place label. Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a small fracture in his non-throwing wrist, but even at this age he can still read a defense faster than almost anyone and punish a bad call. Mason Rudolph is not the same problem, but he is steady enough to let the Steelers lean on their tight ends and running backs and make this a long, slow, painful game if you are not ready. On the other side, Caleb Williams is playing the best football of his young career, but he knows too many of these wins have come down to the final drive when they should have been put away earlier. This game is not just about beating Pittsburgh, it is about proving the Bears can handle pressure when the opponent, the health report, and the history all squeeze at the same time. The shocking part is that everything about this matchup swings on who is under center and how Caleb Williams responds to that pressure across from him. Is he ready to stare down Aaron Rodgers in a charged Soldier Field and turn the page? Or does a smart Steelers game plan with Mason Rudolph force him into another nail-biter? Before we talk about trades, awards, or big offseason moves, we have to look straight at the quarterbacks in this game and how their situations could completely flip what this night becomes. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Bears and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 200 likes on this video. The Chicago Bears are staring at two completely different games inside one matchup, and both of them start with Aaron Rodgers. If his wrist holds up enough for him to play, the Bears are facing a future Hall of Fame mind who has seen every coverage, every disguise, and every trick defensive coordinators try to throw at him. If he cannot go, it switches to Mason Rudolph, who does not scare anyone the same way, but gives Pittsburgh a steady, mistake-light option that keeps the offense on schedule. The mystery around who actually takes the first snap does not just change the comfort level for Bears fans, it changes how aggressive Chicago can be from the first drive to the final whistle. On the Steelers' side, the tension is all about risk and reward. They know Aaron Rodgers wants to be on the field, even with that damaged wrist, because he understands what it would mean to walk into Chicago and control this kind of game. Mike Tomlin has to decide how much punishment he is willing to let his veteran take, how much they can lean on quick throws and timing routes, and when it becomes smarter to pivot to Mason Rudolph and a more conservative script that leans on tight ends and running backs. Pittsburgh is not chasing style points. They only need the version of their quarterback room that can protect the ball, use clock, and force the Bears to play patient football for 4 full quarters. Across from that, Caleb Williams is living through the kind of season that quietly shapes a franchise timeline. He has already shown he can handle pressure moments, drag the offense through tight finishes, and keep his poise when the pocket starts to break. But the real question is what he does when the stakes rise and the opponent on the other sideline wears the name Aaron Rodgers, or the weight of Steelers' playoff expectations. Games like this are the ones front offices remember when they think about future contracts, roster moves, and how far their quarterback can carry a team. To understand how much help Caleb Williams really has around him, and how high this offense can climb when it is built for him, you have to look closely at what Ben Johnson has created in Chicago. The Chicago Bears attack looks calm on the surface, but inside it is pure chaos for defenses, and that starts with Ben Johnson. He has built a system that lets Caleb Williams hit every part of the field, mixing quick throws with sudden deep shots so defenses never feel safe. The run game does not just chew clock, it lures linebackers out of position so those crossing routes and seams open up at the perfect moment. When everything clicks, you see DJ Moore and Luther Burden catching in stride, turning simple throws into chunk gains, and it feels like this offense can move the ball on anyone without breaking a sweat. The twist is that this same offense leaves almost no margin for error up front. Left tackle Theo Benedette has been grinding through a tough season, and now a quad issue raises real questions about who protects Caleb Williams' blind side. If Ozzie Trapillo, a rookie who has mostly played as an extra lineman, has to start in that spot, he will be seeing real snaps against rushers who know exactly how to test him. On the right, Darnell Wright has to deal with stars like TJ Watt, while the other edge could bring Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig crashing off the corner at full speed. Ben Johnson can help with chips and quick passes, but every protection call becomes a stress test when your tackles are under this kind of spotlight. Then you have the quiet problem in the backfield. Depth has thinned out, which means even more weight on DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. With someone like Britton Brown waiting as an emergency option instead of a regular weapon, those backs are not just runners. They are the safety valves in pass protection and the outlets when the rush gets too close. If they cannot keep the rush honest or control the clock, the whole rhythm of this attack starts to wobble. That is why the real pressure on Chicago is not only about scoring, it is about staying one step ahead of a physical Steelers front, while knowing the other side of the ball still has to deal with a very different problem: the way Pittsburgh designs its own weapons to attack the Bears' defense. The Chicago Bears walk into this game without the heartbeat of their defense, and that is where the story gets scary. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, and Noah Sewell are all dealing with injuries that pull them out of the picture right when the Steelers want to test the middle of the field and the run game. Instead of trusted starters who have seen everything, Chicago is looking at a fresh group that has to sort out play action, misdirection, and power runs from the first snap. When you put that next to an offense that loves to use tight ends and backs in traffic, you can feel how quickly one wrong step at linebacker can open the door for a big gain. Now the spotlight falls on players most fans barely knew a month ago. Ruben Hippolyte is a rookie who suddenly has to call out shifts, hit his gaps, and cover space against players like Jaylen Warren and Darnell Washington without the comfort of a veteran next to him. Beside him, DeMarco Jackson is being asked to move from special team duty into a real defensive role, reading blocks and closing windows that TJ Edwards used to swallow up by instinct. Behind them, Amen Ogbongbemiga waits as the next man in, ready to step into passing downs or goal line sets where every tackle feels like a test of the whole unit. None of these players lack effort, but they are being dropped into a game plan that was never built with them as full-time starters. Because of that, the Bears cannot treat this like any normal week on defense. Dennis Allen has to help these linebackers by tilting the structure in front of them, asking the defensive line to win quicker, eat more blocks, and close running lanes before Ruben, Hippolyte, and DeMarco Jackson even have to make a decision. If the big men up front do not raise their level, this new second level will get washed into traffic, and the Steelers will control the tempo. That is why the next piece of this story is so important, because everything that happens with these linebackers depends on whether Chicago's defensive line can stand up to Pittsburgh in the trenches and finally create the kind of rush that changes games. The entire Chicago Bears plan on offense collapses if the line in front of Caleb Williams starts to leak, and the Steelers know it. Inside, players like Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman have to handle interior rushers, such as Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton, who are built to walk guards straight back into the quarterback. Outside, Darnell Wright is bracing for another long night against TJ Watt, while the other edge could see a mix of Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig attacking every snap until they find a weakness. If the Bears cannot keep the pocket clean long enough for those timing throws and deep crossers to develop, this game turns into Caleb Williams dodging free rushers instead of hunting for big plays. On the other side, the Bears' defensive front has its own chance to flip this story, but talk has to become production. Montez Sweat is paid to be the finisher, DeMarcus Walker and Joe Tryon are supposed to bring steady heat from the other spots, and the inside rotation with Gervon Dexter and Andrew Billings is there to crush running lanes before Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell can burst through. The Steelers' offensive line has given up pressure in bunches this season, yet too often opposing rushers have let Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph escape with easy underneath throws and long, draining drives. If Chicago only gets close without actually landing sacks or disruptive hits, those big bodies and fast receivers will wear on a tired defense while the clock bleeds away. This is why every snap in the trenches feels like a quiet audition for the future. If the Bears can protect Caleb Williams against a front that features players like TJ Watt and still find ways for Montez Sweat and his group to bother the Steelers quarterbacks without constant blitz help, it tells you the core is strong and just needs time. If the opposite happens and Chicago is bullied at the line while the pass rush disappears, then the question becomes much louder. How far is this roster from adding one more true game closer in the front seven? And is it worth Ryan Poles paying the price for a Garrett Crosby type move in the coming offseason? The Chicago Bears do not need a perfect game to beat Pittsburgh, but they do need a very specific kind of game. The offense has to stay calm when the Steelers' defense tries to turn every snap into a street fight, and that starts with Caleb Williams making smart choices with the ball. If he takes what is there, leans on DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai to keep the chains moving, and hits timely shots to DJ Moore and Luther Burden when protection holds, Chicago can control the pace instead of chasing it. Every long drive that ends in points, drains the energy from that Steelers pass rush and forces Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph to answer instead of attack. On defense, the Bears cannot afford to be almost right. They have to be sharp in the moments that swing games. The front has to give Montez Sweat chances to finish plays, not just get close, while the secondary rallies to the ball and brings down players like Jaylen Warren, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson on first contact. The real line in the sand is turnovers. If Caleb Williams plays clean and Chicago squeezes one or two mistakes from the Steelers' offense, that tilt in field position is usually the difference between surviving a tight fourth quarter and watching it slip away. This matchup is less about who gains the most yards and more about who blinks first when the pocket collapses or a throw sails a little inside. The part that could change everything is how the Bears handle the moment once the game reaches that final drive that has defined so many of their weeks. If Caleb Williams walks off the field with a win over Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field, or outduels a classic Steelers grind game with Mason Rudolph, it sends a clear message about where this team is heading and how soon. If it goes the other way, the questions about pass rush, depth, and big investments on defense only get louder. So before you click away, think about this simple test for Chicago. Do you trust this version of the Bears to close out a game like this right now? Or do you believe they still need one more major piece before they can turn wins like this into a habit?